Call this meeting of the Board of Education to order. Welcome to our meeting tonight. All regular meetings have been posted on our district website and our central office in each district school building. This is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There's a time for regular public participation during the meeting as indicated in agenda item E. If you wish to make a presentation to the board during item E, please fill out the Google form located on our district website before item E on the agenda. Thank you. We want to welcome everyone tonight. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lee.
Here.
Dr. Burnett.
Here.
Mrs. Rader here. Mrs. Tobler. Here. Mr. Devlamic.
Here.
Mrs. Lush. Here. Mr. Wentworth.
Here. Item C, adoption of agenda. Can I have a motion, please? Do it. I think I do. I move the agenda of the special meeting of July 21st, 2020 be adopted as written.
Support.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Dr. Burnett.
Yes.
Mrs. Rader, yes. Mrs. Tobler. Yes. Mr. Devlamic.
Yes.
Mrs. Lush. Yes. Mr. Wentworth.
Yes. Item D, recognition of visitors. The COVID restrictions, we have none other than Mr. Dobius from MASB. Welcome again this evening.
Thank you.
Moving on to item E, community dialogue and citizen concerns. If you just give me a moment. I have one community dialogue citizen concern, and I will read that here. It is from Jennifer Hoover. I would like to personally thank Chris Lee for having the dignity to thank Athletic Director Lonnie Hoover for his 9+ years of service to Buchanan Community Schools. Thank you. Let me refresh one more time. And that concludes our community dialogue citizen concerns. Moving on to item F, negotiations for superintendent of the school. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Dobius to get us started.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to see you again. Before we start talking about the next superintendent of schools and that sort of thing, I want to commend the entire community for their input and participation in this process. I was just looking back through some of my notes. I won't catch everything, but if you remember way back at the beginning of June, we did the online survey, you had 247 participants. You had 234 responses to the first set of interviews. You had 71 responses to the second set of interviews. You had 25 responses to the virtual townhouse meetings. And that's just simply outstanding participation. So you have a community, obviously, it's very vested in the schools. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, and you're probably not surprised by those numbers, but I am. And I don't see that kind of participation very often. So kudos to the district. Really want to do three things here tonight on my part. One is I want to give you the opportunity to talk about any of the audience feedback that you received. You don't have to, but if there's anything that resonated with you that you want to bring out, it'd be good. I want to talk a little bit about the same thing with the references. You talk if there's anything that resonated that you want to bring out, and then we will get down to discussion and ask people to start making a case, if you will, for the next step of superintendent of schools if you feel there's candidates in there that are worthy. So with that, as far as the audience feedback, over the final round of interviews and other comments you may receive and that sort of thing, is there anything you want to share that stuck in your mind?
does that include the, what you sent us this afternoon at 2 o'clock?
Sure, sure. Anything you want to mention?
Okay.
I just comment on the number of comments we had from the audience. I think it was tremendous how engaged everyone was, like you say. They gave a lot of good feedback, and I took it to heart.
Okay, very good.
I agree, and I think we took a lot of those questions and formulated our second interview questions out of that. So I think the process of, listening to the community feedback, and I saw one apologize for the 5 minute, they didn't get it in time or something, or it was too quick. But the process is quick when you have people waiting, standing by to come in. But we do review all of them. I know I do. Took me all day.
Anybody else?
In reviewing, and I'm a paper person, so I copied and printed the stuff. There were 25 pages for each candidate of responses and reactions and their information that they provided. So there's a lot of reading. And we got a note today from a staff member who attended the virtual open house and listened to all of the interviews. And I commend all of the community who did just that. They did their homework as well. And this is a community project. So I appreciated the feedback that we got. That helped me a great deal in, prioritizing what's important for the district, what's important for the school.
Okay.
So I commend them.
I think that there was a lesson here for all of us. It really wouldn't change much if we were doing this again in terms of the virtual piece. And as nice as it is to have people here in person, I think we had actually so many more people engaged because of the virtual piece. So whether we might have, if we were going to do something like this or whatever we might do and need to collect that community feedback in the future, I think having the electronic piece and the live stream really benefited the search process. So
I agree with that as well. And there's a lot of this is uncharted territory for MASP as well. And we don't know how well some of these elements are going to work out or how well the community is going to respond to them. So it's really good for us to have had this experience.
I think the virtual open house, your questions really brought home to me beyond the professional. What is this person like? What do they like? What do they do? It really brought it down to a level that we could all understand. It wasn't a lot of educational jargon. So I appreciated those questions.
Thank you. And I tried to get at kind of questions people might ask if they're standing face to face, and so I appreciate you saying that. I'll talk about references for a minute.
I want to say off of the references, but also the community feedback when you had them in their home, it was more of a comfort for them. So it was on a different playing field. And then like the administrators, to walk through with our administrators, it was a whole nother field too, and that communication and dialogue with them. So I really like the different ways that we talk to them. It wasn't just sitting in front of us or right here or those stressful interviews. So.
And a lot of people don't like to speak publicly, and so they would never have perhaps engaged in the process if we had 200 people in this room or in the auditorium.
Right.
So there are advantages, but of course there are disadvantages. But I think that we saw a lot of positives as a result of that. And they were able to, especially the administration comments, they were able to think about that, process that, and give us a great deal of information.
A lot of times people will take these opportunities to take shots, and I just see that in this process. The comments were very thoughtful.
Obviously, we asked for concerns and questions as well, but I'd say 90% of the comments were positive comments related to one person or another.
I think that's a really great point.
Yep. that I learned in talking to a couple of community members is we think we had 93 people watching this at one point or whatever that number is, but that's one computer screen. And apparently this was made for TV watching, and that computer screen might be facilitating 3, 4, 5 people watching.
Yeah.
And family discussion. And
Well, YouTube keeps track and it was up to 500 in some of our first interviews that I saw, so.
But
Yeah.
yeah, as you're showing that, it's not just necessarily that one person on that screen. It might be multiple people watching that same screen. So
It's interesting that you mentioned the fact that there was family dialogue, and that's important.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Probably students and
I
parents.
got feedback from parents with their students, and that is one part that's kind of missing, I think. But I think if we were in a school situation, when, kids were in class and stuff, it maybe would be easier, because I think the last time for your strategic plan, I think you pulled the kids out and stuff, but some parents and families reached out to me with their students and what they thought. So I thought that was cool.
And not to say that since we were at work, we were able to listen to the virtual open house also,
Yeah.
which then would have allowed us to be at. So that was
Yep.
nice.
References. Yesterday, I spoke, and I mentioned, I was in error. I said something about you had talked to 50 people. That was high. I don't know where I pulled that number out. It was wrong. I actually counted up 22, which is still really good. It's an average of 3 people per board member. And it's, I think it speaks a lot to the work that you've done. And again, to the community members, this has been a very intensive process for our board members. I think Ruth mentioned 25 pages of reading. That's just that's just on audience feedback. That's not all resumes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
That's,
75 pages.
and that includes resumes, that includes
Right.
preliminary questions, letters of application, all that sort of thing as well. But is there anything from that, the references you want to speak to?
I'll speak to one that just kind of stood out. When I talked with a former superintendent, former supervisor for Trish, and the question was, would you rehire? And the answer was absolutely. In fact, I would work for her. And I've never heard anything like that. So that really resonated with me. So.
Great.
I'd like to comment on, I think Brian Brown's references were all positive. We didn't have one negative reference. In fact, most of them said that they didn't want Brian to leave the district, and they were actually begging, the ones I thought were begging not to hire him. Also,
Yeah.
I think because of the situation that Ben Harbor schools have been through the last few years, I think some of Trish's references are polarizing. So
Some politics involved or something?
politics, maybe politics involved. And I'm not sure if we rely on our references quite as much anymore because it's our familiarity.
Sure,
Mhm.
sure.
I spoke on a reference with Trish, and it was all very, very positive. I really like that she listens. She really, and everyone that I spoke to said how well she listens and compassionate she is for people. But there was one that really stuck out with me is that she had went to a PD day, and it was on poverty. And she sat in the front row, the front table, and during the break, she walked around and talked to every single person. And she never took the time out of that day to go back to her desk, to take any calls, to do anything. She was so engaged and with the audience.
Well, okay.
So,
I think with the references, when I saw Trish's and then I was reading through there was a little bit of a conflict for me. Because I was like, how do you have this wonderful, positive, 3 or 4 references, and then these other ones were just so negative to me. So then I actually vetted those, and I wanted to find out because there is some politics in the Benton Harbor area with their board, their school. She was an intern superintendent, so a lot of the stuff that the community, because this is on some of our community comments too, is, and it was one of my big concerns. She's coming from a failing district or a state, states monitoring their school district. So I wanted to know, and one of the big things is she is an intern superintendent. She took a lot of problems from the superintendent that is actually the person in charge. So I don't think it's fair to put a lot of those issues. One being that her board president was attacking her for misappropriation of grant funds. That was a pretty big deal, and it was in the paper. It's in their board minutes. A lot of conflict. That was researched and investigated by their board because of the situation, because they wanted to put it to rest. So they did an investigation with an attorney, contacted the Michigan Department of Education. They wrote a letter and said it was not on her watch. So that to me was very, very good news when I was vetting some of those comments. The other thing is Barry Rico oversees Benton Harbor. It is not a one-man show, it's not a one-woman show, and everybody knows that. A superintendent is too, and we can read them from MASB. They manage a lot of stuff, but it doesn't come on one person with all that. She, one of the comments from a community member is, why would you leave? Why would you just leave your kids and your students? She was 23 years dedicated. That's a long time. So to me, I think she answered it very well. She answered it very well when Chris Lee said, asked her specific questions. That's the stuff I was looking for. Those are the questions that the community had too. So one other reference I will say, a Buchanan graduate, been working for Benton Harbor 20 years. I contacted her. I graduated with her. She's one of my good friends. I said, I want to know, how is it? How will she fit in Buchanan? Who knows better than a Buchanan resident, right? A Buchanan buck. So she said she will fit. She listens. Very calm, very collective. She doesn't jump. She's not big to, make her changes. And she even said that in her interviews. So some of the stuff I vetted because it was very serious to me. So.
A former teacher of ours also worked with her for 10 years at Benton Harbor, and he had very good things to also say about her, very positive. And I like that he said she's quiet until the time is right. She listens, summarizes it, and then comes out with her game plan. So, very organized individual.
Good. Other information from references you want to share?
So from the law enforcement perspective, there was nothing negative about her as an intern or in the area. And usually if there's something not so good, you're going to hear about it.
Yeah. Oh, Harvey, put your volume on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Forget about that. All right. So from the law enforcement perspective, there was nothing negative about her from the law enforcement community. And of course, Benton Harbor has its differences and kind of transitions in that area. But the thing is that usually we would hear things of that nature if there was an educator that was having some issues, and there was nothing of that nature. And even with her response to, which a good superintendent would do, or anyone, is if you're coming in a leadership position, reaching out, especially if you want to maintain partnerships. And one of the partnerships that we've always had strongly is with our law enforcement community, and her reaching out and meeting the chief and working with us to be able to continue that is very, very big. So.
And Sheriff Bailey said she was always available on a dime when he had to call her. So.
I'm not sure where, and what I did is I combined all of this afternoon, but I was impressed with the amount of partnerships that we saw in all of the candidates, but especially with Trish, with the health department, social emotional, with the police, with BRISA, with JA. There's a lot of partnerships with Whirlpool, I believe she mentioned, and so a number of partnerships. And to be honest, that's where we may have to look a lot in the future for funding and so we'll need grant money. We'll need partnerships. So, and we have partnerships now with Honor Credit, but we need to expand those partnerships as well.
I think that all three of them vetted out very well on the
Yes.
references. Certainly, none of them have been a superintendent before and held that position for, a period of time to demonstrate that they can make an impact. But I think all three of our candidates demonstrated a high level of integrity through the references.
Absolutely.
And that came through so much, the word honesty, integrity, compassion, passion, empathy. I mean, there were so many of the same comments that just were permeating all three. So we had good candidates.
And kids, they all three talked a lot about
Mhm.
the importance.
What I'm gonna just step to all three of them from my viewpoint, I guess. With Tricia, obviously, as you said, none of them had superintendent experience. She probably had the closest of them, so I think that was a positive. And she said she came into town and visited and talked to people. It reminded me of Dr. Vanderlaan, that she did the same thing. Those are positives. You can tell she has a passion for kids. Hopefully she can rely on her staff to help her get some of that done. 'Cause I know it's kind of too much just for her to take on. With the references checks, there are, to me, a couple red flags, and I think if we choose her, we gotta make sure that we hold some areas accountable and help her to see things through, because some of the things were lack of follow through, lack of follow up. And I'm not sure if that district is much bigger than ours. Maybe it was more difficult, but I just want to make sure we hold that person, whoever it is, accountable. So that's my thoughts there with Mark Perlin. Everybody knows Mark. He also has, I mean, they all three do. Obviously, he knows our district well. I think he's just now starting to get the curriculum development underway. I'd like to see that continue, but obviously, like I said, he has kids at heart. I mean, he wouldn't spend 8 years at Buchanan if he didn't believe in Buchanan. And then Brian Brown, like Chris said, everybody was so positive. I don't know there's any negatives about his personality, and of course we know him from his past teaching. He has a passion for kids. He wants to do what's right. And he'll go over and above. When he taught, he went over and above. He used to tutor kids in the morning, early in the morning before school started. And so he'll always try and find out how he can do more, try and do more for the kids, the district. But I think he'd be very positive. So I mean, all three good candidates.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to one other, one of the references I spoke with was a principal in River Valley, and she said Brian was one of the best people she's ever been around in education. I think that's pretty high regard for someone.
So, are we ready to a discussion about who should be the next leader?
I think so. I just wanted to start with a few comments before we start talking about any individual. We set a list of personal attributes, and this is mainly for the community to hear this and be reminded. Personal attributes and desired leadership skills that we were looking for. I think it's important that we keep all of those in mind as we go along. Personal attributes is a champion for children, staff, and public education, exudes positivity. Transparent, willing to earn trust, innovative and proactive, embraces diversity and multiculturalism, engaging and involved in the greater community, seeks to grow professionally and is a lifelong learner, and engages in active listening. Desired leadership skills, committed to student achievement and well-being, possesses a deep understanding of school finances, ability to assure accuracy and integrity in all matters related to budget, is knowledgeable in curriculum and instruction, understands the importance of technology as an instructional, learning, and management tool. Demonstrate outstanding verbal and written communication skills, presents well as the face of the organization. Seeks to engage underrepresented groups, can work on difficult issues, build a culture of accountability and trust, empowers principals and administrative staff, has the ability to align, mentor, and support and build an exceptional leadership team. Seeks input and collaborates whenever possible, and is able to make difficult, unpopular decisions when necessary, provides rationale for decisions, and follow up with invested parties. Leads towards the shared district vision goals, adapts when necessary. Thinks strategically to guide the district through turbulent times, and finally recognizes and affirms staff, promotes professional growth. I think that we had 6 candidates, not just 3, but we had 6 candidates that all checked many of these boxes. It's up to us to decide which one checks the most boxes, and it's going to give us and be the best fit for Buchanan. But I really want to thank not only our 6 candidates, but every person that applied. We could have gone much deeper than 6. So, thank you.
We also should mention the education and background requirements criteria.
Want me to go over it?
Yeah, that would be great.
Minimum of master's degree, administrative certificate in state of Michigan, 5 years of successful experience serving as an educational administrator or in a similar capacity with preference toward previous superintendent or central office experience. Will consider candidates from outside the education arena who possess significant leadership experience. Past track record of building strong collaborative relationships. Involvement with a successful bond campaign or construction project is valued.
Okay. So would someone like to begin by saying who they think should be the next superintendent and telling the rest of the board why? And I think this is an opportunity. It'd be great if everybody speaks to this
I think
topic.
if we could just,
Yes.
if we can just kind of work through each person and make some comments and then have discussion, or
I didn't quite understand.
work with
that.
through each person and then
Each candidate,
each
board
board
member.
member.
Okay, yeah, sure, go ahead.
So, Mr. Lee.
Well, my top 2 candidates were Brian Brown and Patricia Robinson. I'm very happy that we had a chance to learn more about Mark Kurland, and I think we're very lucky to have him in our district. I think if our district was in a different place than we are right now, that he may have been my top candidate, but we are where we are right now. I think there's 2 words that I feel that kind of describes how I feel based on where our district has been in the last couple of years, and that's risk adverse. And so in my opinion, the candidate that came out to the top for me was Brian Brown. I feel like I know exactly who Brian is, based on his references, based on, I guess, our familiarity with him. I know he's passionate. I know he's positive. I know he worked hard. Like I say, I think if I was basing my decision just on the interviews, I think I would have chosen Trish. I think she was amazing in interviews. But just from a standpoint of, I think when Mark Kurland asked yesterday what the biggest concerns besides COVID were for our district, the board members said finances, and they said healing the district, and they said trust. And Brian obviously has the upper hand in the finances. That's what he does. I just feel he has the right personality to heal the district and bring trust back to the district.
Thank you.
I want to ask you real quick on your question about finances. I think we're in a really good spot for finances, so I'm a little confused on that.
Ruth, that was Ruth's answer last night.
No, I know, I'm just saying in general.
Finances are a statewide problem right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
We're fine. We're fine.
Right.
But remember what I said.
Right.
We're fine. Yeah, we have a pretty good fund equity, but the state may have different opinions.
Right.
So that's
Right.
where
Can
that.
you elaborate on, I guess that was my question. Is
Yeah,
that
no, I
all
was
candidates-
just going by what, you know, the board had said last night is what are the biggest concerns and finance is going to be big for every district.
Just in general, moving on. I got you. I'm just asking questions.
Kelly,
For what?
Ms. Lacy, two.
Tell us your thoughts.
Your turn.
Tell us your thoughts.
My turn, all right. My turn, I would say the top from the first interview was Trish Robinson. She hit it out of the park. She nailed every part for all the way from kids' success to curriculum to all of the knowledge of education. She just has it. I love her personality. I love her tenacity when it came to, when I did my, checked with my resources and talked to people. I loved her organization and her plan. I mean, she came with a plan. She's ready. She said she started a drop of a hat. So the other thing, you know, Mark, yes, great, that he's here, but Brian, the other thing, even all the comments, he's finance, wish we had a finance position available. What a great team they'd make. So, when it comes down to the person that I can see, and the other reason is there's that little bit of worry in myself as the connection in Buchanan. Is he gonna be able to, enforce, you know, the change and the academic achievement that we're seeking for? The other part with Brian is he's never been a principal. So I have a hard time with that, being that if we have issues, I think we've had issues before Tim. I think we have issues when he leaves. So I still think we have, a lot of healing and a lot of work to do. So I think Trish can jump right in and get us rolling in the right direction and make those personal connections right off the bat.
Dr. Burnett.
Looking at all the information together.
Oh, you're
I got it.
for.
I'm not away. Looking at all the information putting together and kind of summarizing it all, if I were to kind of rank order, which I did, I ranked ordered based on a lot of, factors put together. So number one was Patricia Robinson, and then Mr. Curlin was second, and then Brian Brown. Looking at Mr. Curlin and Brian, I think both would, if given opportunities, would do really well for the district. I think both offer some positives that are needed. As Kelly pointed out with Brian, and I've known him for a while and observed his teaching, been in his classroom and things like that, is the administrative piece and understanding what the district is facing, not only with the pandemic, but we also have to deal with the personality of the district. Nobody's ever mentioned that. And the personality of the district has always been what it is, and how we as a district and individuals within that district and deal with certain things is a concern that has to be addressed. And you have to have someone that is tactful, but also strong enough to be able to do that, and to be able to stand ground, and also to be able, as they build relationships, to be able to work towards educational goals of the district, as well as bringing everybody aboard. And I think she exhibits that. I think, her even just taking the time out to come and visit Buchanan is very important, and especially from understanding the personality of the district and the community, as far as that being important, that kind of connection. But more importantly, she does bring a leadership educational style that has experience that can get us moving towards where we need to go, but at the same time, work towards providing a healing experience as needed. She also has experience in bringing grants, and I'm talking outside of what's in the educational realm. Not just Michigan grants or federal grants, but other community-based grants that can involve grassroots leaders and other things to kind of move us where we may need more extra funding for that. Again, she is also organized and has a vision, and she's not afraid to, based on her responses and what she shared, she does take time to listen, and she does things in a way that is not bullish or impulsive, but one that where she, based on what I've gathered, will take time to gather all the facts and make decisions and provide that kind of leadership. The other plus for her is, as being an interim superintendent and with the Benton Harbor School District and understanding the dynamics of that district, kind of similar to what has happened to Detroit down the road. I believe that given the opportunity, we would see some of the visions and programs that you want to put into play actually fruitate and have some accomplishments and of that nature. But there's also this thing of what I like about her as well is, I know we always talk about wanting to be with the safe and the familiar, which is not a bad thing. And yes, we don't know her per se. She hasn't grown up in this community or anything like that. But, if we are, what I believe we are, is a community of giving people chances and acceptance and trusting with someone with the most valued items that we have in this community, which is our kids. And she does have a passion for that. I believe that she would do that, and she would do that honorably with integrity, and also providing also a different perspective that is needed for this district, not only with culture, but also with different ideas in education. So that's looking at that, why I would pick her.
Thank you. Mr. Delamon.
Okay. Well, Kelly, you keep on putting up the 100 day thing. You gotta remember,
I couldn't find it.
interview one, she gave us this.
I have more.
And it was nice because with the mask, you can't see a smile. You saw that smile. That was nice. And boy, when she came in, her mask coordinated with her outfit. That's incredible.
I noticed that too.
And if you looked last night, she had like a black and white, and it was gray. I mean, it coordinated still. I struggled. I really did. I think from experiential knowledge, who can hit the ground running day one will be Trisha Robinson. I mean, she has the experience. Like I commented earlier, some of the drawbacks of from the references we talked about, it has me cautious, and we got to make sure we hold her accountable
As anybody.
as anybody. Brian Brown, because I know him, I've seen what he's done in the past. Is he able to hit the ground running on day one? No. Can he learn that? Can he get there quick? Yes. I think he can help heal the district quickly. I don't know that about Trisha. I had a hard time, but I have like Brian is my number one, and Trisha's really close behind, and I can support either.
Thank you. Mrs. Ryder.
Well, I have a little bit of experience in education.
No, really?
So, like 50 years. The first thing I looked at was the criteria. And I went through the criteria and I ticked off, okay, this candidate, this person has this person has, the highest percentage, over 90% of our criteria is Trish. The other two were between 50 and 70%, okay? Brian is great. I taught Brian. You know, he's great. He's never been a principal. This is very concerning to me. I would not want a second-year med school to do my husband's open heart surgery. I'm not sure, and I'm sure he will be a great superintendent, but he needs that leadership. He needs to evaluate educators, principals. He needs to, I mean, he will be great, but he needs that foundational experience. Mark is great. One of the things that kept coming out of some of the community responses was, these are known entities, but maybe we need some new blood. Maybe we need a new perspective. Maybe we need something that outside the box, and we have two products that are inside the box for a long time. So, and then I went through what is their work background, experience with budget, curriculum. Two of the candidates are very familiar with PLCs. We've worked with PLCs with Andrea and now with Tim. And two of the candidates mentioned PLCs and have good working relationships with PLCs. And Brian had some, but he hasn't guided the PLC movement. Technical diversity is an amazing concept that we need in this community. In leaders, we've talked a great deal as a board about how do we get diversity into our classrooms besides in the seats of the classroom. I really appreciated that open house concept. I cannot compliment you enough on that, but I learned so much during that. Leadership, I also looked at all of the, all the positives, and we had so many positives for all three candidates. Tricia's done everything, teaching, director of preschool or coordinator, and then she was a principal. She was an assistant principal or a curriculum director, then assistant, superintendent, and then interim. She's gone through all of those steps that are so necessary, I believe. Students first, concerns. I will be very honest. When I first saw the background and where she had been, I was very concerned, but she won me over with her first interview and her second interview. One of the administrators said in the comments, I can't wait to pick your brain. I feel the same way. I would love to learn from Trish. There are some concerns. Someone said that she drags her feet. Well, in her prior district, there's a lot of feet that are dragging. So I will go with what the board majority feels, but I totally support Trish.
Thank you. Mrs. Coleman.
Well, as everyone knows, my top three, of course, was Patricia, Kelly, and Brandon. Well, of course. Yeah, Patricia. But that doesn't take away from Brian and Mark, because they both were wonderful candidates. It is a very hard choice to make, as we all have said. I agree with everything that everyone has shared with me. I agree. But I do think the last 2 years, we need healing. And all of the references and her listening skills and how calm she is, everything that's been said to me, I think she's the one. I think she can take us to the next step. Her desire for kids, she even included kids in the budget planning, in the grant writing. I mean, look at how far our kids will go with that. Maybe we can even get some learning how to do scholarships. I always said that should be in the English class. But yeah, I think she's phenomenal. I think she can take us to the next step. I think she can bring love back to the school, the partnerships, working together. I think she's exactly what we need right now. And I don't mean to take away from the other two. Mark is an amazing individual. I think where he's at right now is a great fit for him. And when Tricia retires, we can revisit Brian. But right now, our district, I believe we need Patricia. Trish.
Thank you. I just want to back up a little bit and kind of wrap up things here a little bit. 2 months ago when we sat down to start this process, we weren't sure we were supposed to be starting it or not, whether that was a good idea. There were a lot of voices against even starting a superintendent search at this point. And yet we were able to attract a lot of great candidates. We came together on that and we decided to pursue it, and wow, we got just a great pool of candidates. And I was impressed when all 6 of them came through here, and how complimentary they were of our finances, how complimentary they were of our test scores. But I think we all know we can do better here in Buchanan, and that's what we're shooting for. So we had to take 6. I had as much trouble with that as I do today, taking it from 6 to 3, because I really liked some of those people there too, and trying to figure out, gee, who's going to be the best fit for the Buchanan schools. So, my top 2 are Trish and Brian as well. I had questions about Trish, just like Ruth said before she came in here, in terms of, yeah, she came from a really low performing school district. It doesn't look good on paper. But I also knew that I talked to someone that had mentioned that they'd worked with her 15 years ago, and how nice she was and how professional she was. But she rose through the ranks at Benton Harbor. That's kind of a tough thing. How many 23-year employees does the Benton Harbor School District have? I'm gonna guess that there's not a lot. And you can take that one of 2 ways, but put elsewhere to go, or she endured. And I think she endured because that was her hometown. She was a graduate, so she worked the district through a lot of challenges. Unfortunately, Benton Harbor didn't grow with her. So maybe we're going to be the lucky recipients of that. I shared Jim's concerns. I want our next superintendent to be successful. I think that's so important for the district. We need to have good, clear expectations, and we need to make sure that they have the support and training to not hit the ground running, but to grow and thrive with Buchanan. So those are topics we're going to have to talk about with whichever candidate we hire. How are they going to provide? How are we going to provide that professional development for them to get better? How are we going to make sure that they're successful? Because if they're successful, then our district is going to be successful. So we're all going to need. This isn't the end of the process. This is kind of the middle of the process for us. So that's going to be hard.
And
That
us
mean-
as a board, can I throw that in?
Yeah.
Us as a board needs to improve and grow with them also.
Absolutely, and we need to improve and grow with them. Yep. Brian Brown, I know Ruth has concerns about his experience. We all have different viewpoints on that. Brian, he started with a career as a banker. He has managed people. He has led teams, just not in the educational environment there. And then outside of Buchanan, so that's great. And then he was drawn back into a second career as a teacher. And we all know what a phenomenal job Brian did as a teacher for the Buchanan school system. He was dedicated. He was committed. It's easy to be popular. He was popular and successful at the same time. He held kids accountable. He worked with parents. He made sure that there was success there. And then he took, in my mind, he took his two callings and he wrapped them together into one thing. And he started the training to become a business manager. Not all that different from where he started. But it was a way for him to, in my opinion, a way for him to wrap his knowledge and experience in the numbers in the business world and wrap that in with his passion for kids. And from everyone that I talked to, even though he's a business manager, he still exudes that passion for education. And my feeling is, as a superintendent, I had the comment, when you're a principal, when you're a curriculum director, you're 6 miles deep and an inch wide, really focused in one area. When you're a superintendent, you're 6 miles wide and an inch deep, covering all the different aspects of running the school system: curriculum, food service, busing, athletics, you name it. You have to have at least a working knowledge of all those pieces. And I think Brian's equipped for that. And I think Brian will be a great superintendent for Buchanan schools someday. I hope he gets a chance to come home and do that. Obviously, as everyone's expressed here, not everyone, but as I'm keeping track, there's strong feelings for Trish to move forward, and certainly I can support that. I hope we can all support that. And is there any other comments at this point? Jim?
I wanted to make a comment because I know we got, like you said, feedback from the community and feedback. You guys talked about, gosh, Benton Harbor's not doing well. Things we got to remember is school of choice has taken all the good kids out of Benton Harbor into other districts. The parents that care about the kids' education have moved them out to get a better education. And now they're left with a lot of them whose parents don't care, or parents can't afford to get them to another district and push. So, so they're starting at a lower level than a lot of other schools because of what's left there. And to have that passion for 23 years, to care and want to grow and improve what you do have there, because I'm sure there are good kids still in that school. It's just overshadowed by the kids that maybe don't have structure at home that make them want to perform well.
Very good point.
It's an excellent point. I just wanted to dovetail on what you said about involving students. One of the things that struck me is Trish involved a special ed student on one of the committees. That's just amazing. That's admirable. But that's an excellent point, Jim. And this goes back before Trish started. And
Hillary Clinton amendment was-
and back in the 80s, wasn't it?
Well, you had a DSEG, but then once that was back, school
Absolutely.
of choice was made before.
Right, but I mean, this has been a long time coming. And she's been dedicated to those kids. And that, you know, it takes a lot of courage to be that dedicated for that long.
I just want to know that reservation of, oh, Benton Harbor. Well, I mean, it's a challenging district. I mean, when you have a high turnover of staff, it's difficult.
I can even see her having a connection.
Well, I just need to add, because I don't want this to be one of those just to look at bashing Benton Harbor. I mean, we also have a bottom third of students here that also don't have structure, and other things that help them to be successful. And I believe that Tricia would be able to do that. She has that experience to be able to work with making sure that all students can be successful, not just our top or
That's true.
in between.
I mean,
So just wanted to kind of point that out because, you know, we can get so focused on, has Benton Harbor had issues? Yeah, but we have our own issues as well. Some of us have to deal with them on a daily basis, so.
Yeah.
I mean, Mark Cohen said that with the middle school at one time, that was why we were focus school, because that bottom. And we do, I mean, Tim talked about that being a mission too. We do need to raise all of them up.
Thank you for saying that, Audrey. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
I'd like to say, you know, I was with Jim. I had a very difficult time coming up with my top. Brian was 1, Tricia was 1A. I would support Tricia 100%.
Thank you. Mrs. Tobin, would you like to make a motion?
I would love to.
On this, we need the president and a board member. So
What's that?
For the motion.
for the motion.
So if I can just speak
Yeah.
to that quickly, I think that the negotiations with the candidate should involve the board president, should involve one other person. You don't want to have all that burden fall on the board president. You know, I also sent you kind of a cheat sheet on some of those contract items and that kind of thing. You also want to empower your board president and whoever else meets with the candidate with a little bit of flexibility and all that, and you know, respect that they're going to do their best job in that. But I find that two people work really well. Sometimes someone from the business office comes along too to explain maybe, you know, insurance and some of those kind of items. But
Do we discuss that real quick? Not like detail, but like I thought the dollar amount was changed. I thought we only went to 125 on our, but I couldn't find it anywhere.
it was
Between
130.
three.
I just wanted to make sure that
110 and 130.
it doesn't really, yeah, I mean, you can sit and negotiate that. I mean, we had the amount. I just thought it was off from what I remember, but I couldn't, doing everything else today, I couldn't find the exact. what was said.
I'd like to say that I think it would be a good idea if Sandy's willing that she be part of the negotiations. She's going to step in as the board president, taking over for Dennis on August 1st, right?
Thank you. I was going to recommend that also.
The two of them should be involved in negotiations if they're willing.
And I mean, obviously you had listed everything out. Based on our past experiences, I think that last one, what'd you call it, the Green League? Or
Evergreen.
You know, I think not only this contract, but all of our contracts, we need to get away from that.
I think that's one area I would probably ask the school attorney to definitely write something that's the most friendly to the Board of Education in that clause. You know, I shared last night what some of the other districts I've worked with have done, but you want to get definitely your board's your attorney's take on that.
All right.
Well, shouldn't the attorney be involved in the process?
Yeah, no matter what, they're gonna have to review that. Yeah, and who made who made the like red marks in the other contract? Whose decision was that?
That was from True, wasn't
That
it?
was true.
Okay, I was thinking that they probably were involved in that, so I would have done the same thing, so.
Yeah, I would have a conversation with the attorney before you sat down, and maybe you could have a conference call with two of you and make sure you're all on the same page, and encourage you to do the contract as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, Sandy, now you're up.
Someone make a motion.
I'm gonna make a motion.
You're gonna make it?
Okay.
I move the Buchanan Board of Education authorizes the board president and Sandy Tobler to enter into negotiations with Patricia Robinson for the position of superintendent of schools.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
No.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Lee? Dr. Burnett?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryder? Yes. Mr. Wentworth?
Yes.
Mr. Dubuque?
Yes.
Mrs. Lesh?
Yeah.
Mrs. Tobler?
Yes.
It is kind of tradition that after the meeting tonight, the board president and I will get on the phone and the board president will extend the offer. You stand for that?
I'll be there.
Is there anything else we need to cover?
I want to really compliment the board on the discussion tonight. And the way you coalesced around one candidate, and I know there was definitely some give in that. I think that's a wonderful step forward for this Board of Education. I talked, I can't remember who I spoke with, I know Sandy was one of the people, but going forward, MASB offers you a free roles and responsibilities workshop, roles and relationships. I guess it talks a little bit about setting expectations for your next superintendent, evaluation, some of those things. That's free. That would probably stop with me again on that one. Another thing that I would highly recommend to the board would be to engage someone from the Michigan Association of School Boards or others, if you've got somebody else in mind. Just come in and work with the board on maybe a monthly or 2 monthly basis to start with. I would recommend someone who is a board member that works for MASB, not a superintendent. There are those people, they can just talk about communication, how to move past certain issues. And you're certainly going to get a great step forward in that tonight. But sometimes boards don't want to spend that money on their own professional development. And I think that's some of the wisest money in the district. If you have to pay somebody to come in and do that, I just think that's a real healthy thing. So, and I thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you for all your efforts.
I'd like to say, this is my third superintendent search that we've been involved with. I know Harvey's probably been involved with more. I know Sandy and I were involved with 2 others, and I think this is the best. Short time frame, we were sprinting, but I think Mark stuck to the process and allowed us to make the decisions. He just put the framework and structure together that worked well and addressed, we talked about doing site visits, but we addressed that with the reference checks. Everything I liked about it, this was a very, very great experience for me. If I compare it back to my past superintendent search. Thank you, Mark.
I'm so happy.
Thank you.
I think calling the references really helped.
Yeah.
I think that was probably, I hope that proves to be even better than a site visit. I
Yeah.
think it.
1,000 times better than a site visit.
And we could, site visit
Yeah.
doesn't work for everybody. So this way we're
Right.
all actively
Yeah.
involved in.
We got more candid information than when the candidates select who we speak with.
Yeah.
So it was much, much better.
I enjoyed the site this 10 years ago, but this was better. This is better by far.
Was still doing reference calls today, just reaffirming things.
So was I. It was a busy process. I want to say, not only thank you to our community, and thank you to all the leadership and staff. I reached out to our, Wendy Murphy, our union, just the participation and the good conversations. Wendy and I have talked several times, and I'm like, man, I should have done that a lot sooner, just even for our own healing of stuff that we've been going through. And I just want to say that I appreciate and respect all their opinions, and I was glad that they were upfront and trusted myself and all board members in that process too. So I just want to say thank you, because this is, it's been a fast process, but I think we made the best selection out of our candidates. So.
It was grueling. Yeah, but excellent. Thank you. Thank you all. It's a team effort. We have to maintain that team.
I think we moved into questions and comments from board members at some
A little
point.
too soon.
Does anyone have any more comments to add? Okay, very well. Next board meeting is Monday, August 17th, 2020 at 6 p.m. I will state that I suspect we're going to have a board meeting before.
Probably.
Yeah, unfortunately, for me again on 17th because she's playing.
Oh, on this.
Well, we'll probably have to,
Present it again.
we'll have to approve a contract at some point, and we also have the COVID plan that
Needs to be
I don't
approved
think
by
we have to.
August 15th.
Yeah, but I don't think it has to be approved by the board necessarily.
I thought it
So
did,
we will
but I know
probably-
Risa does it like the other one.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
With that, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Paul. This is the best before we adjourn.
Now I kill my little baby tree here.